This conference will now be recorded.
Today, our topic is arches of the foot. Arches of the foot is one of the most important topics in the lower limb and commonly given in the examinations. It can come as an essay, or any one arch can come as short notes. Now, if you examine the imprint of a wet foot on the floor, చూడండి ఎలా ఉందో చూడండి. బాత్రూమ్ నుంచి వచ్చి కాలు వేస్తే ఎలా ఉంటుంది ఇలాగా మొత్తం కాలు ప్రింట్ అవ్వదు. If you examine the imprint of a wet foot on the floor, అంటే మనిషి నుంచి ఉన్నప్పుడు person in standing position, one can see that the heel, the lateral margin of the foot, the pad under the metatarsal heads and the pads of the distal phalanges are in contact with the ground, not the whole foot. మళ్ళీ చూద్దాం. సో ఇది హోల్ ఫుట్ కాంటాక్ట్ లేదు. సో ఇక్కడ హీల్, metatarsal heads, phalanges. Please mute yourselves. Please mute yourselves, please. Yeah, and the lateral border, heel, metatarsal heads, phalanges are the ones which are caught medially. There's no print. That is because middle part is raised. So that is what the introduction. Now, this is because the foot is arch shaped. This is in accordance with its functions. That functions ఎలా ఉండాలో అలాగే ఉంది. కాబట్టి ఇప్పుడు ముందు functions ఏంటో తెలుసుకుందాం. So what are the functions of the foot? It should act like a pliable platform. Pliable అంటే కొంచెం ఫ్లెక్సిబిలిటీ ఉండేలాగా, బ్రేక్ అయిపోకుండా. Pliable platform to support the body weight in upright posture. మనిషి నిల్చుని ఉన్నప్పుడు బాడీ వెయిట్ ని సపోర్ట్ చేయాలి. అట్లాగే it should act like a lever to propel the body forwards during walking or running. నడుస్తున్నప్పుడు కానీ పరిగెత్తున్నప్పుడు కానీ బాడీ ముందు తోయడానికి అదొక లివర్ లాగా పనిచేయాలి. It should act like a shock absorbing device. And simultaneously, because of the arch shape, it accommodates some soft tissues, the fat in which are embedded vessels, nerves, etc. They're all nicely accommodated without getting damaged. So these are the functions of the foot. A pliable platform to support the body weight, lever to propel the body, shock absorbing, and then to accommodate soft tissues. Now, to meet these requirements, the human foot is designed in the form of elastic arches or springs. ఒక రకంగా స్ప్రింగ్ యాక్షన్ అంటే. Now these arches are segmented so that they can best sustain the stresses of weight and of thrusts. The presence of these arches make the foot, and more importantly sole, concave. So that is how the foot is made to meet the aforesaid functions, requirements. So if it is a single bone, it cannot be like this. So it should be made up of many bones, many segments, and it should have lots of elasticity. And then when all these things happen, it is automatically concave. So you can see, if you just see the bones, this is the medial view, you can see the concavity, arch shaped here. Now if you see laterally also, it's arched, though a little less shallower. And if you take a cross section in transverse axis also, it is arch shaped. So whether sagittally, medially, sagittally, laterally, or transversely, foot is arch shaped. Now, arch lo ఏమేమి ఉండాలి? What are the basic features of an arch? What are the basic features of an arch? Now, it should be made of many segments, not a single rigid one. That is basic fundamental. Because if it's a single rigid one, it cannot have the aforesaid properties. So it should be made up of many segments, that is for sure. In the foot, segments are bones. So in the foot, these segments mean the bones of the foot. A bones shape ఎలా ఉండాలి? Shape of the bones also should be wedge shaped. The bones should be wedge shaped. ఆ వెడ్జ్ కూడా అపెక్స్ డైరెక్టెడ్ ఇన్ఫీరియర్లీ అలా ఉంటేనే ఆర్చ్ కుదురుతుంది. So it should be made up of many bones, and all bones should, most of the bones should be, if not all, wedge shaped, and the apex should be ventral. ఇక్కడ చూడండి, ఒక ఆర్చ్ ఎలా ఉండాలో ఇక్కడ బ్రిడ్జ్ లాంటిది ఎగ్జాంపుల్ చూపించారు పుస్తకంలో. So all these are segments. They're all wedge shaped. May not be very much wedge shaped, but compared to the outer width, the inner width is a little narrow. And look at this one, clearly wedge shaped. ఇలా ఉంటేనే ఆర్చ్ అనేది ఫార్మ్ అవుతుంది. తర్వాత the bone at the top of an arch, that is the most important anyway. For example, if you see, this is the bone at the top of an arch. That is the most important one. That should be wedge shaped, surely, and that is called keystone. Keystone. Keystone is the most important of the stones here. So the bone at the top of an arch, most important, wedge shaped surely, is called the keystone. The inferior edges of the bones are to be tied together by ligaments. ఆ కట్టే వాటిని స్టేపుల్స్ అంటాము, లేకపోతే ఇంటర్ సెగ్మెంట్ టైస్ అంటాం అన్నమాట. అయితే ఇక్కడ ఇలా 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 బోన్స్ ఉంటే అవి జారిపోయే అవకాశం ఉంది. జారిపోకుండా దే షుడ్ బి టైట్లీ టైడ్ బై సమ్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ ligaments, which in general are called staples, but in our context we call them intersegmental ties. Intersegmental ties. Now this picture shows the staples or intersegmental ties. ఎలా ఉంటే అప్పుడు బోన్స్ విడివిడిగా పడిపోకుండా ఉంటాయి అన్నమాట. So these are all the basic features of any arch to maintain, to sustain. So they should be wedge shaped, and the keystone should be more wedge shaped, and all the members are to be connected by the ligaments, intersegmental ties or staples you can call. And the ends of an arch should be connected by the tie beams. ఇన్నున్నా కూడా పైనుంచి ప్రెషర్ పడితే కొంచెం ఫ్లాట్ అయిపోయే అవకాశం ఉంది. అలా అవ్వకుండా ఈ ఎండ్ నుంచి ఈ ఎండ్కి, ఎండ్ టు ఎండ్ ఏదో గట్టిగా పట్టుకుని ఉండాలి. వాటిని టై బీమ్స్ అంటాం. టై బీమ్స్, టై బీమ్స్. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇక్కడ చూడండి ఈ పిక్చర్లో. నౌ హియర్ దిస్ ఇస్ వన్ ఆర్చ్, హియర్ లాంజిట్యూడల్ ఆర్చ్. Now here this is one end calcaneum, this is other end metatarsals, and you see these two structures, which connect the ends, they prevent this arch from getting flattened under pressure. So tie beams hold the ends together. Even if untene, so bone should be wedge shaped, keystone undali, tarvata anni kuda connect staples tho connect ayi undali. They are called intersegmental ties, and the ends should be connected by tie beams. Tie beams ivi చూస్తారు కదా ఇక్కడ, abductor hallucis as well as the aponeurosis, plantar aponeurosis. వీటితో పాటు for further protection of the arch, if something pulls it from above, పైనుంచి ఇలా లాగి పట్టుకుంటే వేలాడదీసినట్టుగా, they are called slings. కొన్ని bridges కి ఇలా కూడా ఉంటాయి slings అన్నమాట. It's called slings. It is also called suspension bridge or sling. మన foot లో for example చూస్తే, for example, this is a tendon called flexor hallucis longus. అలాగే ఇంకా వేరే ఉన్నాయి, tibialis anterior, posterior, peroneus longus, brevis, even tendocalcaneus. They all help to pull the bones above so that the arches are maintained. For example, here tibialis anterior medially, here laterally peroneus longus and brevis. They're all suspension bridges. Suspension bridges, know the terminology. Suspension bridges or slings pulling from above. Now, the arches of the foot are a distinct feature of a man. They are present right from birth. అయితే చిన్నపిల్లలకి కాళ్ళు వేసినప్పుడు కాలు మొత్తం తగులుతుంది నెలకి. In the infants now, because of fat, the wet foot may look like a little flat. అంటే ఇలా కాన్కేవ్గా కాకుండా ఫ్లాట్ గా అనిపిస్తుంది, మొత్తం ఫుట్ ప్రింట్ పడిపోయి. డిస్పైట్ ద ప్రెసెన్స్ ఆఫ్ ఆర్చెస్. ఆర్చెస్ ఉన్నా కూడా ఫ్యాట్ ఎక్కువ ఉండిపోవడం వల్ల కొంచెం ప్రింట్ డిఫరెంట్ గా ఉంటుంది అనమాట. సో అదర్వైజ్ ఆర్చెస్ ఆర్ దేర్ రైట్ ఫ్రమ్ బర్త్. ఆర్చెస్ లేకుండా నుంచి నడవడం అసాధ్యం. నా ప్రతి ఆర్చ్లో ఏముంటాయి, పార్ట్స్ ఏముంటాయి? వాట్ ఆర్ ది పార్ట్స్ విచ్ మేక్ అన్ ఆర్చ్? Constitution or parts of each arch: anterior and posterior ends, anterior and posterior pillars, summit, and I told you already keystone. Sometimes summit and keystone happen to be same, but sometimes not. And then main joint. So we will learn every arch under these headings. What are the bones making the arch, and what are the bones which form ends? Anterior posterior ends or side medial lateral ends, and then anterior posterior pillars, and then summit, the keystone, and the main joint. We will learn every arch under these headings. Now, what are the arches that we have in the foot? We have two arches lengthwise, anteroposteriorly, and then one transverse arch. So arches are appreciable in either axis, in a sagittal axis or transverse axis. Sagittally, we have two arches, medial longitudinal arch, lateral longitudinal arch. Transversely, transverse arch. So we will learn each of these arches according to what are described in the previous slide, according to these headings. So now let us jump on to the medial longitudinal arch. We must learn this very well because this arch is the most important arch of the three, and this alone is asked as a short notes question good number of times. Arches of the foot is an essay, otherwise medial longitudinal arch alone is an important short notes question. Now this is higher, more mobile, and more resilient. Resilient ante shock absorbing ki tattukotam, resilience. So medial longitudinal arch is higher, more mobile, more resilient than lateral arch, lateral longitudinal arch. It is mainly built for shock absorbing. Now, what are the bones forming? Let us see one slide. Now, what all you see here is the medial longitudinal arch. If you see from behind, calcaneum, the talus, the navicular, and then three cuneiforms. Three cuneiforms. You know, cuneiforms are three in number: medial, intermediate, and lateral. And then medial three metatarsals. Now, these are the bones which form the medial longitudinal arch. See, phalanges do not form. So here, the metatarsal heads themselves touch the ground. The arch ends there. So the phalanges do not participate in the formation of arches. So let us see, what are the bones forming the medial longitudinal arch? So as we have seen in the picture, calcaneus, talus, navicular, three cuneiform bones, and the medial three metatarsals from behind forwards. From behind forwards. Okay, you can see that picture again. So behind forwards. Calcaneum, not the whole calcaneum, medial half. and then the talus, navicular, all the three cuneiforms and medial three metatarsals. They all form the medial longitudinal arch. Now we will learn this arch according to the headings which we have said earlier. Now ends. How are the ends formed? Since it is sagittally orientated, ends are anterior and posterior. So the anterior end is formed by the heads of the first, second, third metatarsals. Phalanges form అవ్వు ఇందా చెప్పాను కదా, ఎందుకని ఇక్కడ metatarsal heads ground touch అవుతున్నాయి. So the arch ends here from calcaneus to the metatarsal heads. So medial three metatarsals, they form the anterior end, all their heads touch the ground. Anterior end, and then middle half of the calcaneum forms the posterior end. Posterior end is formed by the middle half అంటే calcaneus inferior surface చూస్తే మనకి రెండు tubercles ఉంటాయి, medial tubercle, lateral tubercle అని. So medial tubercle is a part of the medial longitudinal arch. Now pillars, same picture లోంచి calcaneus alone, if you see, look at this, ఇవన్నీ ఒక లైన్ లో ఉన్నాయి కాబట్టి ఇదంతా కూడా anterior pillar and this is the posterior pillar. So let us enumerate the bones forming the pillars now. The anterior pillar is long and weak. Now anterior pillar lo చాలా bones ఉన్నాయి, talus, 3 navicular, 3 cuneiforms, medial 3 metatarsals, ఇన్నున్నా కూడా it is weak compared to the posterior pillar calcaneum. So the anterior pillar is long and weak. And how is it formed? By the talus, the navicular, the 3 cuneiform bones, and the medial 3 metatarsals. So just see the picture and enumerate. Talus, navicular, 3 cuneiforms, and the 3 metatarsals, medial 3 metatarsals, first, second, third. And the posterior pillar, short but strong, is formed by the medial part of the calcaneum. So only medial part of the calcaneum, lateral part to lateral arch matter. So this is the posterior pillar. This is all anterior pillar, long but weak. Now look at that. Now look at the calcaneum. Only middle half is shaded here. So what is shaded here by dots, dotted, is all the medial longitudinal arch. See the calcaneum middle half, and then the talus, the navicular, 3 cuneiforms, and the medial 3 metatarsals. In the previous picture, we could not see all this. So this picture shows the bones of the entire number of bones, all bones of the medial longitudinal arch. Now summit is formed by the superior articular surface of the talus. So obviously this is the summit here. This is the superior articular surface of the talus, where it articulates with the tibia. So this is the summit, superior articular surface of the talus, summit. Okay, that is the summit. Now what is the main joint here? Talo-calcaneo-navicular joint. This is a very important joint from the exam point of view also. Look at the talus here. This is the talus, the diagrammatic picture. Here it should be rounded actually. This is the head of the talus, and this is the navicular. Head of the talus is rounded, and this is the navicular, and this is the calcaneum. Here there should be spring ligament. So the navicular, the spring ligament, otherwise called plantar calcaneo-navicular ligament. Spring ligament, otherwise called plantar calcaneo-navicular ligament, should be here. So the plantar calcaneo-navicular or spring ligament, the navicular, and then the calcaneum, they all form one concavity into which fits the head of the talus. It's a ball and socket type of joint in one way. So this is the main joint, obviously. So the joint is here. So look at that. This is the navicular, and this is the calcaneum, and the ligament is not seen here. Ligament should be here. Spring ligament should be here. So this is the main joint, talo-calcaneo-navicular joint. So here you see. Now the summit is here, but the keystone is head of the talus here. So keystone and summit are not the same here. Sometimes they are the same. Now this is another picture where you can imagine the head of talus here, the colored one, and then the navicular, the calcaneum, and here is the ligament seen here. You can see some shade here. This is colored, this striped one. That is the plantar calcaneo-navicular ligament, otherwise called spring ligament, on which the head of the talus rests. So this ligament is very important for weight bearing. We'll see the ligament, same ligament, in some other views later. Now let us learn a little bit about the lateral longitudinal arch. If you compare with the medial arch, this is certainly less important. It is more concerned with the weight bearing than the shock absorbing action. So it is low, formed by less bones, less joints, and mobility also is limited and is built mainly to transmit weight and thrust to the ground. Body weight anta ankle joint lonchi ee arch ki lateral arch ki akkadi nunchi ground ki. Now it is considered to be a small arc of a big circle. I showed you in one of the previous slides the lateral arch is more flatter compared to middle arch. So when it is flatter now, naturally it is a part of a big circle. Now this is in contrast with the medial arch, which is more of a shock absorber. So this is the lateral arch. So if you compare it middle arch now, it is certainly flatter. If you see the previous slide, where is the slide? Yeah, if you see this slide, if you compare with the middle arch, middle is higher and more concave and mainly meant for shock absorbing. The lateral is a little flatter, concave arch only, but then comparatively less, more shallow, and then more weight bearing, closer to the ground. And in wet foot, it forms the shadow. I mean, it forms the imprint on the ground. Okay, let's go back to the lateral arch now. Now, what are the bones that form the lateral arch? Part of calcaneus, lateral part is there, cuboid, and the remaining two metatarsals. Middle bones are middle arch ke busy అయిపోయాయి. Let us see the picture. So lateral half of the calcaneum here, and then the cuboid. These are the cuneiforms which have taken part in the middle arch already. So calcaneum, cuboid, and only these two metatarsals. Kabatti picture lo మీరు ఇదంతా కూడా మిడిల్ ఆర్చ్ అన్నమాట. వాటిని ఇగ్నోర్ చేసేసి ఇది మాత్రమే చూడండి. Only this one which I am showing. Only this one, the lateral arch. Lateral half of formed by lateral half of calcaneum, cuboid, and the fourth and fifth metatarsal bones. The ends, it automatically ఇవే ఫార్మ్ అయ్యేది. So anterior end is formed by these two metatarsals. అంతే కదా. ఎందుకంటే middle three name they form the anterior end of the middle arch. So anterior end of the lateral arch is formed by the heads of the fourth and fifth metatarsals. The posterior end is formed by the lateral tubercle of the calcaneum. Previously, we have seen medial tubercle forms the posterior end of the middle arch. So now the lateral tubercle forms the posterior end of the lateral arch. So this is the lateral tubercle forming the posterior end. What is the keystone now? The keystone is the cuboid bone. ఎందుకంటే ఇక్కడ ఈ ఆర్చ్ లో కీలకమైనటువంటిది ఇదే. So cuboid is the keystone, obviously. Cuboid is the keystone, but this is not summit. Summit ఇక్కడ ఉంటుంది అన్నమాట. This is the keystone. Keystone is the cuboid. Now the summit ekkundi? Summit lies at the articular facets on the superior surface of the calcaneus at the level of the subtalar joint. చూడండి ఇక్కడ చూడండి. Now here there is a joint between the talus and the calcaneum. Actually, the talus articulates with calcaneum in three places. Three facets are there. Aithe here is the place where I am showing there is the largest facet, and the main joint between the talus and the calcaneum is here. This is called subtalar joint. So naturally, this facet here, this is the summit. The summit lies at the articular facets on the superior surface of the calcaneus at the level of the subtalar joint. Subtalar joint ante between the calcaneus and the talus, the main joint ikkada. Ikkada rendu chinna untavi avi kaadu. Idannమాట subtalar joint ante. Now the anterior pillar is long and weak. Same. Anterior pillar ante idi kada. So cuboid, itu metatarsal mala. Anterior pillar is long and weak, formed by the cuboid and the fourth and fifth metatarsals. Obviously. What about the posterior pillar now? The posterior pillar is short and strong, like the middle arch. The posterior pillar is short and strong. So we can expect the lateral half of the calcaneum. The posterior pillar is short and strong, formed by the lateral half of the calcaneus. The main joint of this arch is the calcaneo-cuboid joint. So summit ikkada undi, kaani joint matram idi. So this is the calcaneo-cuboid joint. So this is the main joint of this arch, calcaneo-cuboid joint. Now let us learn about the transverse arch. Some books may describe there are two transverse arches, but actually there is only one which is important. So we will learn the transverse arches as one. Transverse arch. Now, if we take a cross section through middle of the foot now, you will see all these bones are cut here. The three cuneiforms, the cuboid, and even the metatarsal bases are seen. So all these things now, they are also arch shaped. Only the ends are below, touching the ground. In the middle, they are at a higher level. So this is the transverse arch, formed by the bases of the metatarsals, the cuboid, and the cuneiform bones. So the three cuneiform bones, the cuboid, and the bases of the all five metatarsals, all five metatarsal bases. Now this arch is complete because the ends touch the ground. Because what are the ends here? Heads of the first metatarsal and the fifth metatarsal bones. They touch the ground and form the two ends of the arch. So if you see now, this head of the first metatarsal touches the ground, and the base of the first metatarsal touches ground, and base of the fifth metatarsal also touches the ground. So since both ends touch now, it is said to be a complete one. And these bases of the metatarsals first and fifth can be said to be ends. Okay. It's a mistake here. Okay, anyway. Now medial longitudinal arch. Shape of the bones. And now that is all about the transverse arch. Now we will learn how the arches are maintained. And earlier we have seen if an arch has to maintain now, there should be lots of things which connect them, like the staples, intersegment ties, what are called, and then the tie beams, and then the slings, suspension bridge, like that. Are there like this in these arches also? Yes, there are very much. Otherwise, the arches would be flattened with no tie. Now, what are the factors now which maintain these arches now? Mainly, shape of the bones. Bones should be wedge-shaped, and they should be compactly fitting with each other. For example, if you see here, sustentacular talus holds up the talus. Now look at this. Now this is a calcaneum. This shelf-like projection from the calcaneus medially is called sustentacular tali. ఈ sustentacular tali మీదకి head of talus ఏమో navicular లోకి ఇవన్నీ కూడా చాలా కాంపాక్ట్ గా ఫిట్ అవుతున్నాయి ఇక్కడ. See that sustentacular tali holds up the talus. The concave proximal surface of the navicular bone receives the rounded head of the talus. So ikkademo sustentacular tali support the head, and the head is nicely fitting into the concavity of the navicular bone. Now the slight concavity of the proximal surface of the middle cuneiform receives the navicular. So ikkada navicular loki head of talus fit ayindi ikkada, tarvata malli navicular convexity fits into concavity of the middle cuneiform. Itla bones ani kuda paraspara chakka fit ayipotunnayi what shape valla. Cuneiforms antene wedge shaped annamata. All cuneiforms now they are wedge shaped invariably, which are appreciable in transverse arch. You can see all cuneiforms are wedge shaped. Okay. Now we are learning about the medial arches. First, middle longicular arch, the bone shapes I told you already. Now the rounded head of the talus is the keystone in the center of the arch. See that head here. So this is the keystone. Summit is here, that's different. Now this is the keystone. Head of the talus is the keystone of the medial longitudinal arch. Now staples. Staples should connect all the bones together. The inferior edges of the bones are tied together by the plantar ligaments. If you see this kind of picture, you're not seeing all ligaments. All bones are connected by plantar ligaments, many. But the most important for our medial longitudinal arch is this one. This is called plantar calcaneo-navicular ligament. I told you already. Spring ligament, which extends from the sustentacular tali of the calcaneus to the navicular bone. Plantar calcaneo-navicular ligament. So there are many ligaments which connect all the bones. The most important, of course, is the plantar calcaneo-navicular ligament, otherwise called spring ligament. Tarvata, the tendinous extensions of the insertion of the tibialis posterior are also very important. Now, if you see the insertion of tibialis posterior, tibialis posterior is look at this, get the orientation properly. This is anterior, that is posterior, this is calcaneum here. Now, tibialis posterior coming from the back of the leg, it is mainly inserted to navicular tuberosity, all right. But then it sends expansions to all tarsal bones except talus. So it sends expansions to all tarsal bones except talus, as well as to the bases of the middle three metatarsals. So all these expansions can be taken as the intersegmental ties. So intersegmental ties. Now let us see which structures form the tie beams, which are connected to from end to end in the case of medial longitudinal arch. Now let us see tie beams. Of course, plantar aponeurosis is a beautiful tie beam extending from end to end. It's a tie beam for both arches, medial and lateral also. Anyway, for the middle arch now, middle half of the plantar aponeurosis. And if you look at the muscles of the first layer, abductor hallucis, and then middle half of the flexor digitorum brevis. And if you look at the muscles of second layer, flexor hallucis longus, and then middle half of the flexor digitorum longus. And even the flexor hallucis brevis of the third layer. All these act as tie beams for the medial longitudinal arch. So beautiful tie beams. So let us enumerate again the tie beams. Plantar aponeurosis. Of course, middle half only. Similarly, middle part of the flexor digitorum brevis, first layer. Abductor hallucis, first layer. Flexor hallucis longus, middle half, second layer. Similarly, flexor hallucis longus is total anyway. Middle part of the flexor digitorum longus, and then flexor hallucis brevis of the third layer. All these act as tie beams. So tremendous supports for the medial longitudinal arch. So plantar aponeurosis middle half, and then the flexor hallucis longus, middle half flexor digitorum longus. So abductor hallucis here, abductor hallucis, and middle half of the flexor digitorum brevis. Second layer again, this is the flexor hallucis longus and the middle half of the flexor deitoru longus, and from the third layer, flexor hallucis brevis. Now suspending from above, slings అనమాట పైనుంచి ఎవరు పట్టుకుంటారు. Tibialis anterior, tibialis posterior, flexor hallucis longus, medial ligament of the ankle joint. Now we have a weak slide here, not a very good slide. Now this is the tibialis anterior coming from above. That pulls it arch above, that is a sling certainly. And here tibialis posterior is cut here. That is also a sling certainly. And this is another beautiful sling called the flexor hallucis longus. Flexor hallucis longus, tibialis posterior, tibialis anterior. In the flexor deitoru longus also can act like a sling. So these are the points which sustain the medial longitudinal arch. Let us look at the same way to the lateral longitudinal arch. Shape of the bones. Minimal shaping of the distal end of the calcaneum at the proximal end of cuboid. అంటే పరస్పర ఫిట్ అవడం కోసం ఎంతవరకు అవసరం అంతవరకు చక్కగా షేప్ అయ్యాయి. The cuboid is the keystone. So here they're fitted together nicely, cuboid and the calcaneum, and the cuboid is the keystone. Because staples cover వీటి కూడా. Naturally, all bones here are connected by ligaments. So the inferior edges of the bones are connected by long, and apart from small plantar ligaments, conspicuous among them are the long and short plantar ligaments and the origins of the short muscles of the sole. Short muscles now, interosseous particularly, constituting fourth layer of muscles. Now look at the ligaments here. So this is the long plantar ligament. Long plantar ligament, deep to that, and superior to that is the short plantar ligament. These are the beautiful intersegmental ties. You see, connecting calcaneum and cuboid, short plantar ligament and long plantar ligaments. Now, origin of these interossei also act like intersegmental ties. Now, tie beams, which connect end to end, kada? Same. Again, lateral half this time of the plantar aponeurosis and lateral half of the flexor digitorum longus. So again, abductor digitae minimi of the first layer and lateral half of the flexor digitorum brevis of the first layer. Lateral half of the flexor digitorum brevis, abductor digitae minimi, and lateral half of the flexor digitorum longus. So they are all the tie beams. Now slings suspending from above are the peroneus longus and peroneus brevis. Now this is a decent picture. You know peroneus longus and brevis. They constitute the lateral compartment. Peroneus brevis is inserted at the base of the fifth metatarsal. Peroneus longus, peroneus longus goes into the sole. See, it passes in a groove in the cuboid bone and continues across the foot to the medial cuneiform as well as base of the first metatarsal. So peroneus longus has interesting course, the vertical course as well as transverse course. In any case, now it is certainly a beautiful sling for the lateral longitudinal arch. Now let us see the maintenance of the transverse arch. Shape of the bones. Of course, cuneiforms are all wedge-shaped. So marked wedge shaping of the cuneiform bones and the base of the metatarsal bones. So that is an important factor. So you can see cuneiform antene wedge shaped anamata. Now plantar ligaments, and then short and long. So in that same ligaments, long and short plantar ligaments are good. They are good for, this is good for the transverse arch also. And then adductor hallucis arch. This is a muscle of the third layer, interossei. Now interossei, now they hold these bones together naturally. They are helpful for the transverse arch also. Now look at this picture. This is the picture showing the muscles of the third layer. Look at this muscle. Adductor hallucis, like the adductor pollicis in the hand. This is the adductor hallucis with the oblique head and the transverse head. So certainly these two, the adductor head, adductor hallucis certainly helps to maintain the transverse arch. Adductor hallucis. So they're all to be taken as staples. Now tie beam is peroneus longus. We have seen already tie beam. We have seen already This is the transverse part of the peroneus longus. Again, let us see the whole picture. Yeah, see, peroneus longus once again, vertical, and then passing in the groove of the cuboid, and then passing across transversely. Naturally, it sustains the transverse arch, no doubt about that. Peroneus longus. Peroneus longus. Sling, again, peroneus longus is sling also, apart from being the thigh beam. Peroneus longus and pelvis, because they are pulling the arch from above. As you can see in this slide, they are pulling the arch end here like that. Now a little bit of applied anatomy. If there is something wrong with the arches, what can happen? Absence or collapse of the arches. Now, why does it happen? It can happen due to some damage, mainly. Apart from the reasons now, if it happens, the arch, the middle longitudinal arch, particularly becomes flat, the foot becomes flat. Shape alone to the sir, look at the shape. Look at the normal foot and look at the flat foot. Flat foot or pes planus. Pes planus. Pes and the foot matter. Pes planus. Plain foot matter. The pes planus may be congenital sometimes or acquired due to any injury. Now, what can be the effects now? Clumsy, shuffling gait. మనకి బ్యాలెన్స్ ఉండక కొంచెం అటు ఇటు పడిపోతున్నట్టుగా తరబడుతూ నడుస్తాం. ఇది ఎందుకంటే ఆ స్ప్రింగ్స్ స్టేపుల్స్ అన్ని డ్యామేజ్ అయిపోతున్నాయి కాబట్టి షఫ్లింగ్ గైట్. సో దిస్ ఇంప్రెషన్ ఆఫ్ ది ఫ్లాట్ ఫుట్. ఇంకేముంటాయి ఫ్లాట్ ఫుట్ లో? లాస్ ఆఫ్ షాక్ అబ్జార్బింగ్, ఆబ్వియస్లీ. The loss of shock absorbing action or loss of this function makes the foot more liable to trauma and even osteoarthritis. And then loss of concavity. A concavity local vessels nadustu anni untayi, మరి అవన్నీ డ్యామేజ్ అవుతాయి, అవన్నీ కంప్రెస్ అవుతాయి. So loss of concavity of the sole leads to compression and even damage to the vessels and nerves which are protected there normally. So this is a picture of the flat foot pes planus. Now another condition, reverse of this, where the arch is exaggerated, that is called pes cavus. Pes cavus. Exaggeration of the longitudinal arches of the foot is called pes cavus. If you see the picture, you see the arch looks even more dramatic, more than normal. What is it actually? Exaggeration of the longitudinal arches of the foot is called the pes cavus. Pes cavus. Pes cavus. This is usually a result of contracture, plantar flexion at the transverse tarsal joint. That is one factor. Another factor is when dorsiflexion of the metatarsal joints and plantar flexion of the interphalangeal joints. This is due to atrophy of the lumbricus and interosseous. This is dorsiflexion of the metatarsal joints and then plantar flexion of the interphalangeal joints are superadded. Appudu this pes cavus is even more dramatic. Then that's called clawfoot. So pes cavus lone koddiga exaggerated stage. Koddiga higher degree aithe clawfoot antam annamata. Clawfoot. Almost same, clawfoot or pes cavus same. Okay, that's about the pes cavus. So that is all. Thank you.